Royal Air Force Akrotiri, or more simply RAF Akrotiri, IATA, AKT, ICAO, LCRA, is a large Royal Air Force station, on the Mediterranean island of Cyprus. It is located in the Western Sovereign Base Area, one of two areas which comprise Akrotiri and Kelia, a British overseas territory, administered as a sovereign base area. The station commander is double-hatted and is also the officer commanding the Akrotiri or Western Sovereign Base Area, reporting to the commander of British Forces Cyprus, who is also the administrator. Akrotiri was first constructed in the mid-1950s to relieve pressure on the main RAF station on the island, RAF Nicosia. In the aftermath of the Egyptian repudiation of the Anglo-Egyptian Treaty, British forces had to be withdrawn from the Canal Zone in Egypt. After the ending of the League of Nations mandate over Palestine in 1948, the only other British territory in the eastern Mediterranean was Cyprus. Consequently, the withdrawal from Egypt caused an enormous buildup of forces in Cyprus. This period also coincided with the outbreak of the internal security problems of Oka in Cyprus, further increasing pressure on the RAF airfields on the island. Suez Crisis. Even this massive influx from Egypt was not the end. In late 1956, relations between the United Kingdom and Egypt had reached crisis point. The Suez Crisis saw a further increase in the strength of RAF forces in Cyprus. Akrotiri was mainly an airfield for fighter, photo reconnaissance and ground attack aircraft. Its regular squadrons of Meteor night fighters, Canberra photo reconnaissance aircraft and Venom ground attack machines were reinforced by further Canberras and Hunters from Fighter Command in the United Kingdom. The airfields in Cyprus were so overcrowded that there was a real fear of massive loss of equipment should the Egyptian Air Force decide to attack the island. Citation needed. Fortunately for the RAF, that attack never came. The overcrowding extended beyond Cyprus. Significant RAF units from Bomber Command were deployed to RAF Luka in Malta, crowding that station as well. The attack on Egypt was a military success, despite interference in the plan which reduced its effectiveness. However, it was a political fiasco, because the United States put considerable pressure on the United Kingdom and France both economically and politically. This quickly forced the Eden government from power. The station's complement quickly returned to normal after the crisis passed, with the reinforcing units that had crowded it during the war returning either to the United Kingdom or to other parts of the Middle East Command. 1960s. After the Suez Crisis, the main emphasis of life on the airfield shifted to helping quell the Oka revolt and training missions. After the withdrawal from both Egypt and Iraq, and debacle of Suez, it was clear that a command centered on Cyprus could not control units stationed in the Arabian Peninsula, of which there were still many. Consequently, the Middle East Command was split, with that east of Suez being controlled from Aden, and the rump being renamed the Near East Command, controlled from Cyprus. From 1957 to 1969, 4 squadrons of Canberras, NOS 6, 32, 73, and 249, provided first a conventional and then from November 1961, a nuclear striking capability as part of the Baghdad Pact, later CENTO. Akrotiri, along with Nicosia, assumed a very important status, as virtually the sole means for projecting British air power into the eastern Mediterranean, outside of aircraft carriers. In 1960, independence was granted to Cyprus, with the RAF maintaining both RAF Nicosia and RAF Akrotiri as airfields, controlled by the Near East Air Force. However, Akrotiri assumed more and more importance as Nicosia was used for greater and greater amounts of civil aviation traffic. After 1966, it was no longer possible to maintain RAF units at Nicosia due to pressures of space, and Akrotiri became the only RAF flying station left on the island. 1970s. In August 1970, a detachment of G of the Central Intelligence Agency arrived at the airfield with U-2 aircraft to monitor the Egypt-Israel-Suez Canal fighting and ceasefire. Later permanent monitoring of Middle East ceased fire after 1973 Yom Kippur War. It became the 100th Strategic Reconnaissance Wing Olive Harvest in 1974. Up until 1974, RAF Akrotiri had a balanced force of aircraft assigned to it, including No. 9 Squadron RAF and No. 35 Squadron RAF flying Vulcans. The Vulcans provided a bomber force for the Central Treaty Organization, one of the three great anti-communist mutual defense pacts signed in the early days of the Cold War. However, during that year, Turkish forces invaded Cyprus in connection with a Greek-sponsored coup. The UK then evacuated most of the RAF from Akrotiri as the Central Treaty had degenerated to the point of uselessness. The two Vulcan squadrons left for UK stations in 1975. What was left at the airfield was the flying unit that is permanently assigned to the station to this day, No. 84 Squadron RAF, a search and rescue unit flying helicopters. In addition, the role of No. 34 Squadron RAF Regiment was changed from low-level air defense to infantry and counter-terrorist duties. In September 1976, the U.S. U-2 operations were turned over to the 9th Strategic Reconnaissance Wing, but the U-2 operation at RAF Akrotiri continued to be called Operating Location O until September 1980. Thereafter it became Detachment 3 of the 9th SRW, although the name Olive Harvest continues. Two U-2s are stationed at RAF Akrotiri and they are still monitoring the ceasefire agreement between Egypt and Israel, although the present operations in Central Command requires further missions. U-2s also transit through RAF Akrotiri either on going into the Central Command Theater or returning to Belay FB. 1980s. Between April 1983 and September 1984, RAF Chinooks deployed here to support British UN forces in Lebanon. In the mid-1980s, the U.S. launched retaliatory attacks against Libya after the country's leader, Muammar al-Gaddafi, was implicated in terrorist attacks against U.S. military bases. Although the bombers were staged out of the United Kingdom, RAF Akrotiri was employed in the role of an alternate in case of emergency, and was used as such by at least one aircraft. This caused a severe upgrade in security around the airfield as Libya threatened to respond against locations used in staging the attacks. The threat was carried through with an attack on the station on August 3, 1986 with mortars, rocket-propelled grenades and small arms. 3 British dependents were wounded, although damage was negligible. Security at the station remained high with substantial fortifications constructed along its northern perimeter, until the first Gulf War. The attack was carried out by an unknown supposed Palestinian group, but it was generally assumed that this was commissioned and underwritten by Libya. 2010s. In July 2006, RAF Akrotiri played a major role as a transit point for personnel evacuations out of Lebanon during the 2006 Lebanon War. See International reactions to the 2006 Lebanon War and Joint Task Force Lebanon. Akrotiri was the location of the main transmitter of the well-known numbers station, the Lincolnshire Poacher, although transmissions ceased in 2008. In March 2011, The station was used as a staging base for support aircraft involved in Operation LME. Tanker support and logistical units were based here to support aerial operations over Libya. In August 2013, 6 RAF Typhoon fighters were deployed to Akrotiri to defend the base, following possible military responses to an alleged Syrian government chemical weapons attack. Earlier 2 TriStar air-to-air refueling aircraft and a Sentry U.1 had been deployed to Akrotiri. The station hosted the main hospital for British Forces Cyprus, the Princess Mary's Hospital, TPMH, located on Cape Zavgari. This closed in November 2012 and cases too serious to be dealt with at the base health clinic are sent to the private Geopoli Clinic in Limassol. In August 2014, 6 RAF Tornado fighter bombers were deployed to Akrotiri to carry out reconnaissance missions over Iraq, following the rise of Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. On September 26, 2014, MPs voted in favor of the RAF carrying out airstrikes on ISIS in Iraq, and on 27 September the first 2 Tornado jets took off from Akrotiri loaded with laser-guided bombs and missiles. On September 30, 2014, 2 RAF British Tornadoes successfully attacked and intercepted ISIS targets of a heavily armed truck, at the request of Iraqi Kurdish fighters.